hear clattering behind him, slowly breaking the mind-numbing silence. It sounded almost as if something was crawling slowly towards him. SpongeBob then slowly turned, as if he expected this, and as he slowly turned, his face slowly came into view. His eyes, they changed. They no longer seemed to be his normal, happy, joyful-looking eyes. They were blood red and full of malice, hate, and anger. One would expect this face from a demon. Hell, even the devil himself would find this look fitting. I myself now slowly began to weep with no end to this horror in sight. His eyes now fixed on something. It slowly transitioned over. It was Patrick. Dear God. Oh my God. Forgive me. No human should be forced to see that. His entire lower body was now missing, with his intestines slowly trailing behind him. The trail of blood behind him, what was left of his arms, had huge holes in them, almost as if something had been torn out of them. The nails. Had he ripped them off the steak? His face slowly came up. His eyes beckoned once more to SpongeBob, but this time they said something different. He slowly began to speak, and I'll never forget these words. Kill me. Please. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Just end it, please. I can't take the pain. SpongeBob responded with a hellish tone even worse than before. You ask for forgiveness from me? Do you take me as your god? You will receive no divine forgiveness from me. You see, it is my job to make you suffer. Burn, fat one. And with the flick of a wrist, arms, hellish arms, seemed to just sprout from the ground and grabbed a hold of him and tore him down into what seemed an endless hellish abyss. All the way down, all you could hear that blood-curdling scream from before. No! Then, SpongeBob slowly turned, as if nothing happened. He even let out a small, evil giggle. By this point, I had almost been wishing for the same thing to happen to me, just so I wouldn't have to see this anymore. At this point, I was crying so hard I almost felt like a little girl. I felt weak, empty, as if I was about to throw up. As much as I wanted to, I just couldn't choke anything out. SpongeBob then slowly approached, and finally, the doors of the Krusty Krab to the path behind him. Oh God, the usual cheery path to the entrance had stakes all along it. Into them were hammered in the corpses of our familiar favorite characters: Sandy, Mr. Krabs, Larry the Lobster, Pearl, Squidward, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, Mrs. Puff, and so on. And on their faces, they all too wore that expression of utter sorrow and horror, as if they had died crying in fear of what stood before them. We then transitioned back to SpongeBob, who now reached for the door. Now something happened out of this horrible, nightmarish thing I was witnessing. The whole building began to shake, almost as if during an earthquake. The only light in the room blew out, and the power went out. I was now in the dark, alone. In this shaking building, I could hear my fellow interns flee and the developers run out. Without even a second thought of where I was, I could hear their car tires squeal as they raced away. Why had they been in such a hurry to escape? I then turned back to the show, almost as if I was being forced to watch. He now stood alone in the Krusty Krab. All the lights were out, and there was utter silence, except for a small red glow coming from the door that usually led to the kitchen. that oh-so-familiar kitchen where SpongeBob usually stood making his delicacies. He began to slowly approach it, slowly in silence. As he reached it, he stood in front of the door, almost as if he himself didn't want to go in. Reproachfully, he slowly turned the knob and the door swung open. Oh God, how I wish I could unsee what I saw and heard. SpongeBob faced a hellish demon of indescribable horror, burning into a portal of what seemed to be hell itself. Was this the devil? Oh God, the fear that came over me in that moment as its mouth slowly opened. "Did you make them suffer, son?" it asked in the most hellish tone imaginable, one of extreme rage, anger, malice, hatred. SpongeBob replied, slowly saying, almost afraid to reply, "Yes, Father. They cried, suffered, and burned. A feast of souls waits for you below." It replies simply, "Good, son. Now back to your cage and be gone with you." And at that moment, I finally threw up all over my lap. Something began to emerge from SpongeBob and his body almost slowly deflated. It almost seemed to be a human, a dog, something. Oh God, I can't even find the words. It crawled toward the portal, and with a swift kick, its father kicked it into what appeared to be hell itself. Then it turned slowly and looked at me, the viewer, and slowly it mouthed something so subtle, so quiet, but chilling to the very core. It seemed as if it was speaking to me. It said, "Oh, don't worry, your world is next. It'll suffer at your hands, just as this one did at his." It slowly transitioned over to SpongeBob, or what was left of his corpse, just skin. "Oh, you'll all atone for what you have done. All of you. You're next." And with that, the computer itself slammed shut and burst into flames. As it slowly burned, I could only weep at this. The horror. This couldn't be real. Nick, wake up." My eyes slowly flashed open. I was in the break room on the floor. Above me stood my friend Tina, who said, "Oh, thank God, you're okay. You just collapsed. You've been out for 5 minutes." My whole body was rattled, broken almost. Turning to her, I had this uncontrollable urge. Turning to Tina, I said, "Don't thank God on this day. He won't save us. He's abandoned us. His abominations, his failed creations." Tina looked aghast, horrified. She ran out screaming. I quickly got up and quietly left. And here I sit, telling my story of this day, calmly. Maybe now I accept my place. And oh, I have work to do. Isn't that right, Tina? You're next. I end with this. I am coming. I am his chosen slayer for this world, a messenger of hell itself. And oh, I'm coming for you. Each and every one of you. Yes, you watching this video right now. You too. And you'll never stop me. Don't try to run or hide. I'll find you.
SpongeBob's coming to video and DVD!
Yo-ho, the sponge is in town.
With 10 episodes that are something to see!
His body is yellow and his pants are brown.
If nautical tales make you get up and dance!
Jerry's a snail, not a hound.
It'll be splitting your sides, it'll be splitting your pants!
Yo-ho, soaking wet, he weighs less than a pound.
Ahoy, mateys! SpongeBob's a-comin' for the first time on video and DVD! It's nautical nonsense and Sponge Buddies! See SpongeBob himself in all his jellyfish and Krabby Patty flippin' glory!
What a great day.
Love that SpongeBob.
and his first mate Patrick, full of gleeful angst.
I was one of the beautiful people. Now look at me.
And Sandy Cheeks, shiver me timbers, you don't want to mess with that lassie.
Don't you dare take the name of Texas in vain!
You go, squirrel.
And Squidward, Mr. Krabs, Gary the Snail. It's the whole gang from Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob at his finest, I tell ye. Nautical nonsense and Sponge Buddies, two must-see rip-roaring epics.
We give it 4 starfish.
Never before has a sponge been so absorbing.
Tour Bikini Bottom without putting on a wetsuit.
'Tis 10 splashy episodes of SpongeBob at his swabbiest. Nautical nonsense and Sponge Buddies, available now on video cassette and DVD. SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants.
In Formula Cartoon Country, time is measured in laps. Lives are changed in seconds. The driver is only as good as his mop bucket.
Check this out.
Introducing Formula Cartoon, the new 3D racing game where you race against your friends and favorite Cartoon Network characters. And the best part? It's free. Just go to formulacartoon.com to start racing.
I gotta give me one of them mop buckets.
Where's Splinter?
점잖아 보이지만 놀 땐